from from 6 years to infinite. During this period, you assume that the earnings will grow at a certain growth rate. We call this part as a terminal value. Terminal growth rate or terminal value. So we have discussed in our previous, we discussed about this concept in our previous financial management class. But it's okay, you haven't attended. We'll talk about this again in the latter part of this class. And anyway, what long-term sustainable growth rate will you assume when estimating future terminal cash flows? So what is your growth rate? What is your terminal growth rate? 3% or 5% or 10%? So this growth rate assumption will make huge changes, will make huge difference in your final valuation number. So one most important implication is that no one knows the exact value of the firm, because the value of the firm is very sensitive to your future earnings estimation assumptions and your assumption of estimating the discount rates. So no one knows the exact value, the true value of the firm. So because there is no answer, we don't know the future, the value of the firm, and the value of the firm will vary depending on your assumptions. The true value of the firm may be only the God knows, as I said before. So simply speaking, valuing the firm is not finding the true value of the firm, because no one knows it. And those analysts or portfolio managers are not trying to find the true, real value of the firm. Instead, they're trying to find their own value in a scientific and in a convincing and in a very logical way. So what is your own value? Say for Samsung Electronics, what does that number came from? So it's all about the assumptions, and therefore you have to be very logical and reasonable in your assumptions, and to be very convincing. So what is your logic for using, say, 3% as a long-term terminal growth rate? And what is your logic for your discount rate? And anyway, the future cash flows projection is challenging given the ever-changing business scenarios, emerging strategies, and unpredictable consumer behavior. Okay, so it's almost impossible to predict the future. So you need to make some assumption in a logical and very convincing way. And this is when relative valuation comes to the rescue at a certain extent. So relative valuation provides information about how the market is currently valuing stocks. So this relative valuation is more simple to value your firm compared to the discounted cash flow models. But since it's simple, it means that the relative valuation may give you less precise number than the discounted cash flow model. Okay, so relative valuation using some price ratios has some advantage in that it is a simple approach, but it is less precise. But the discounted cash flow approach using absolute values is complex. So it is difficult to estimate, but it gives you some precise numbers. But while it gave you some precise numbers, it is at the same time, it is very sensitive to your assumption. So they both have some advantage and disadvantages. Okay, so compared to the discounted cash flow model, the relative valuation techniques reduce the errors occur from the assumptions. So by using current market values, you may compare firms, which firm is discounted, undervalued, or premium and overvalued. Say in a relative terms, how much Samsung, say there is Samsung versus Hynix, SK Hynix. So how much Samsung is valued relative to their peers, SK Hynix? By using PER, the price to earnings ratio, it means that in 1 unit of dollar earnings, how much is the market value of that $1? To investors, the market is valuing that dollar of Samsung and Hynix differently. And why? Say price to earnings ratio is one simple concept. Okay, we will talk about it later. So how much multiple earnings of Samsung's earnings of Samsung and Hynix are valued in the market. So these are the relative concept. So the relative valuation is the process of comparing certain characteristics and parameters, okay, the factors or variables. These are the same meanings, with those of similar other assets to derive the price of the asset. It is best used when there are comparable entities, but it is not precise. Okay, for instance, you can estimate the stock value, equity value. Equity is stock, okay? The equity value of Kia by multiplying the price earnings multiple of 5 times if the comparable firm, Hyundai Motors, is currently valued by price earnings ratio of 5 times in the market. So for example, say Hynix is earning $10,000, and the current market price of the Hynix, say $10,000. In this case, the price to earnings ratio, PER, will be 10 times. Or we say the market is valuing the firm 10 times higher than its earnings. Okay? So we assume that if all other things are equal, Samsung Electronics should be valued by 10 times of their earnings. Say if Samsung is currently earning, say Samsung is currently earning, say, $2,000. Then the market value of Samsung should be $20,000 if you multiply 10 times of price earnings ratio. So this is one simple example of applying relative valuation techniques. But what if Samsung is currently valued at $15,000? They earn $2,000, but their market value is $15,000. You may say that the value of the firm, the stock value of Samsung Electronics, is undervalued than its peers, SK Hynix, because the market, the investors, value their earnings by 7.5 times, but Hynix is valuing 10 times higher than its earnings. So in this case, Samsung can set to be undervalued than the SK Hynix in the relative terms. But also, you have to think about why. Why the Samsung is undervalued than Hynix? Is there any reason to be undervalued? If the market is efficient, the current price is the right price. So there must be some reason why Samsung is valued at discounted price than Hynix. So you have to further look into its business conditions, outlooks, or financial ratios. If Samsung has bad conditions and bad projections in the future, for instance, then we cannot therefore say Samsung is undervalued. But after looking at analyzing some financial ratios, its business outlooks, and we say that we conclude if there is no problem at all in its outlooks or financial ratios compared to Hynix, then in this case we may say that the Samsung Electronics is really undervalued than its peers. Okay, or say so you have to look why Samsung is undervalued. Why the price multiple is discounted relative to Hynix. Say for 1 unit of dollar earnings, the market is valuing this $1 as $10. However, for Samsung's $1, they price it as $7.5. So this is discounted